All right, turn my mic on so it's hot and let's get rolling. It is Monday, the first Monday in October. Yeah, so it's October 5th. It's a Monday, and because it's October, that means we're painting orcs today. So, how's everybody doing? Um, Hope everyone had a good weekend. It's Christian here from the Eternal Chronicles. Yeah, so it's Monday, so slow key it. I think, so today I'm going to just sort of jump into painting because that's sort of what I've been doing for the last 20 minutes or so. I've just been dabbling a bit, getting some stuff ready so I can show you guys on stream here. So, yeah, let's, maybe I'll just get all tucked in here and we'll go to the overhead. And there we are. Let's see if... Oh, wait. Whoa! There we go. Sorry, my overheads were... There we are. Let's do that. That looks pretty good. Yeah, so I was kind of just blocking out some colors on my boys here. These two little grots I'll put over there for now. That was Gretchen. I was just kind of blocking out some colors on here. This is a Luftwaffe gray. The gray up here is that dirty gray from Reaper that I was using. The other one's a Vallejo Luftwaffe uniform gray. I think I actually want to do some like camouflage patterns on some of them. So, and I might do that for like one squad or something to make it a little special, like they're like the commando boys or whatever. So I just kind of was plotting out colors based on the models that I've already painted. So just kind of doing that. And I don't want things to be uniform, so sometimes, you know, the idea is that, like this guy, dude, his pads, his shoulder pads is like big leather pads, and these over here are this gray. So keeping within the same palette, but sort of mixing up where things go, but then also having sort of an internal consistency. Especially on a lot of the models that are essentially duplicates. Like these two guys are very, very similar models. You can see the similarities. So I consciously made a decision to kind of do their shoulder pads a little bit differently. Man, are they ever the same models? But such is the ways of the old One Piece metal models, is that you would end up doing a couple of dummies and then building off that. And yeah, Alex in the chat says wog. I guess I forgot to wog. It's Monday, man. I don't want to. I should never wog on a Monday. I don't know what that means. I'll show you my wet palette here. I've got my three little colors here that I've just been poodling with, so I might just keep poodling with those, blocking out colors. I'm not sure how exciting that will be for you guys to watch. Me be like, oh, well, I'm going to make this Luftwaffe blue, and obviously his pants will be too. So this show may not run much past 1 o'clock today. It being the first day of the week, I have a bunch of things I must attend to beyond the scope of the Eternal Chronicles, as if there's anything beyond the scope of the Eternal Chronicles. Inquisitor Zavak in the chat says the only thing that should be uniform are Storm Boys. Exactly. Funny story. Not a funny story. I don't know. So I've been thinking a lot about this orc army, and I realized that it's more building a cast of characters in a lot of ways, is what I'm going to be doing. So those orcs that I have in power armor, I think I'm looking at them and I'm thinking they're going to be they're going to be freebooters. That's the first thing. So they're going to be mercenaries, and the idea I came up with them for was that they were Storm Boys at one point. And they just kept. So if Storm Boys keep being Storm Boys and don't become good, proper, regular orcs, there's a chance they can start worshiping Khorne. And that's in the free. You can get Khorne Storm Boys, who are a mercenary, or one of the units in the freebooters army book. So you can get yourself some Khorne Storm Boys. And that's really the only way that orcs will relate to chaos gods. They don't actually have much concept of chaos, which means that they are naturally inclined and able to defeat chaos. I was talking with Alex in our Discord chat about how I think it was his position that the idea that orcs, or that it was revealed that something was made to fight chaos. Oh, the Silent King. He was upset because they changed the Silent King's lore. And now apparently the Silent King has come back, and he's come back to fight chaos. And Alex doesn't like that, because everything seems to revolve around chaos, which it should. I mean, they are sort of the, in terms of the intelligent evil that's out there that in the 40K universe, definitely the chaos would be the archetype for that. I'm going to do some leather now, or would be sort of the glory boys for that. But he was saying that apparently the Silent King's new lore is that he's come back to fight chaos. And I talked about how, and we were talking about who made the various things. So to my mind, I think that the orcs were actually made by the Brain Boys, because the Brain Boys are so smart. And they made a huge telescope that allowed them to look far away to distant galaxies. And they looked to all these galaxies, and all they saw were Tyranids. And they were like, well, shit. We're looking out across the galaxy, and all we see are Tyranids. That's a bad deal, right? So they basically made the orcs knowing that it would probably be the end of their, potentially the end of them as the Brain Boys, right? They made the orcs to fight the Tyranids, so that the orcs would be ready for when the Tyranid fleets arrive. Because how are you going to fight a giant organic organism that just consumes everything in front of it? Well, with mushrooms, right? Magic, fancy mushrooms. So I think that the Brain Boys, who they say devolved into the Snotlings, and I totally buy that. Speaking of Snotlings, I was looking through some stuff, and I found this guy. I think I started to paint this guy up for my Blood Bowl team, because he's primed in the same colors that I primed my Blood Bowl team. This is a Army Painter Fur Brown, which is actually a really nice primer to paint over. So yeah, I got this guy, so he's now been repurposed back into my Space Orc army, and I just think he's an awesome squig, and I like this flesh that I did on him. But the flesh I'm going to be doing for my grots, and something I was going to show you today, as opposed to just plotting out colors, blocking out colors on these guys, because eventually, once I get the colors blocked out, then I can wash them, then I can start highlighting them and finishing them, and I think that way I'll actually be able to finish like one orc a day. But what I want to finish are these guys, who work for this guy. So yeah, that's my runt herd, who is his tab actually says the mech boy. But without him, without a runt herd, I can't take the hop splat. And I got plenty of other mech boys and not a lot of runt herds, and you can only have one runt herd in a Blood Axe army. So this will be my runt herd, and these are the Gretchen crew for the hop splat gun. So maybe what I'll do today is I will show you how I paint goblin flesh, because I do goblin flesh almost the way I do orc flesh. I just use slightly different colors for it. Slightly in that I still use the bright flesh. Take my brush out of my mouth, because I'm sure that's wonderful for you guys. And so these guys were goblin green painted, their flesh, and then I went over that with Army Painter Soft Tone and let that cure a while ago. And these guys are so sad. This guy's so sad he's even got a tear dripping out of his eye. Poor little goblins. So what I did with them was I actually used Army Painter Goblin Green, and I've had a complaint about Army Painter Goblin Green that I would like to lodge with Army Painter, because this pot is probably about a third full now. I've been using it for quite a few years. So I went and bought a replacement one, and it's a totally different green. So Army Painter, send me some proper Goblin Green. Putting you on blast. So throw down some goblin green here in my palette, just a little squidge, and then I'm going to throw down some of this bright flesh in my palette. And the reason I use the bright flesh is that it's light enough that it will highlight light, but also it changes the tone of the skin so that it actually, you get these, you know, like I talked about last week about how painting skin is like building up successively thin layers over top of, you know, your whatever your underneath layers are. In this case, it's just goblin green, but you want to build up thin layers over top so that you're providing some transparency to the layer below, because our skin is actually translucent, so you kind of want to be able to show that. And I like and I put the blame on Paul Bonner for inspiring me to change from basically highlighting green up through greens and yellows, and so that it's like, what was that grot again? So this guy was painted goblin green, then probably washed with a green ink, and then highlighted with goblin green, and I probably used like an off-white, like probably my probably the linen. Looking at that, I think I probably would have used the linen with the goblin green. So years ago, not too many years ago, but if you look at my older orcs, and it's really started probably with my Iron Jaws for Age of Sigmar, I started using flesh tones blended with the orc goblin skin tones in order to achieve my flesh. And I blame Paul Bonner for that, because if you look at a lot of Paul Bonner's color artwork, his orcs actually have a lot of flesh tones in them. And I kind of wanted to evolve my painting style and evolve the way that I painted orc flesh, which I had painted orc flesh for, you know, a decades one way. Decided that, you know what, it's time for a change. And it was probably the fresh start of doing an Age of Sigmar army and not adding more orcs to my Warhammer Fantasy Battle orc army, which is ridiculously huge and is actually getting bigger as I'm going back and repainting old models and adding new units, which you saw at the slideshow at the top of the thing there. I managed to, I don't know what, the slideshow may have a maximum number of slides that it's able to load, and as a result, certain slides weren't showing because they were beyond that number. So I removed some of the ones from last week, added in some new ones this week, and yeah, so away we go. So if you look at the slideshow, and most of those photos are also on my Instagram, so you can check out the gram. Yeah. So I often feel like when I'm watching this, like I am right now, I'm not seeing anyone in the chat, and I'm not seeing anyone on the stream. So it's entirely possible I'm just doing this for myself, for my own satisfaction, which is fine because I do like painting goblin skin. Or Gretchen, I guess you'll call these guys. At this point, these guys were still Gretchen. Snotlings were runts, but they were also snotlings. But Gretchens were also, there is also talk in the book about them calling them grots. It's interesting how grot sort of replaced Gretchen. So I'm just going back over just with the green now to cover over most of the wash. But again, I'm doing thin coats so that parts of the wash will show through, and it adds that natural shadow, which is awesome. Oh, sorry. Just had to check something there. So hopefully this is looking decent. So how was everyone's weekend? Everybody having a good weekend? Everybody, I love October, man. It's probably one of my favorite months of the year, and not just because it's Orktober, but I just love fall. I love fall in the city. I love fall in the country too. Fall is my favorite season. What's your favorite season? Don't say summer. So there we go. I'll grab his little buddy here, who just seems to be just as miserable as he is, in their giant steel onesies. What a... and the Hopsplat gun is the only orc field gun I have. I'm thinking about getting some of the... I'd love to actually get a squig catapult, just because I really love that model, and I just think I think it's peak orc to fling squigs at your enemy. Definitely. So a little bit more, and again, I'm just sort of going back over where it's been painted, helping to delineate things a little bit better. So get around the ankles down there. So yeah, so thinking about how I want this orc army to look, I was sort of thinking, well, what is it that I like to paint about orcs? Well, one, they're very different than my other 40k passions, which is I had a Rogue Trader Eldar army that turned into a second edition Eldar army, and that was my first real army that was my first real 40k army was Eldar. I made an Ulthwé army because I thought that the Eldrad Ulthrin model was sick and I must use him. Therefore, I did Ulthwé, and they were kind of the poster boys for the Eldar at the time. So, and I'd had some previous Eldar that we had painted, myself and my buddy Nico had painted purple, and that was sort of going to be the craft world. But then we decided that, or I decided that I was going to do an Ulthwé army. There we go. All right. Inquisitor, are you going to have a Gretchen Mighty Hero? I have the original. I have the Red Gobo, but I'm not going to use him in this army. But he may show up. I have some ideas. I actually have from Nightmare Miniatures, who is a company out of Spain that makes. They actually commissioned Kev Adams to sculpt some models for him. So I have some of these guys, which are. They did a space goblin bandit unit. So there's 11 of these guys, and they're all sculpted by Kev. And the leader, which is kind of like this guy, who's pretty awesome. Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. All right, back on. Sorry. So yeah, so I've got these guys, and I'm going to be using them as Gretchen Bandits, which are another freebooter unit. I also have some original Gretchen. I have these guys, these four, who are original Gretchen from the original batch that he did in '89. So same sculptor, but like 30 years apart. These are '89. I think these say 2019 on them. So literally 30 years apart. So there's those, and then there's these, and there's a significant size difference to them. It's not super pronounced. some of them it's different than others. Like some of these guys, like this guy with the double barrel shotgun, is pretty small. But so again, I'm going to be using these guys as a unit of Gretchen bandits, and I'll be using these guys and a few others that are neither here nor there at the moment, but I have a few others of these, so that these guys will actually be Blood Axe Gretchen, and these guys are going to be Freebooter Gretchen. So, and you asked if I'm going to have a Gretchen hero. The boss in this Gretchen can take some equipment and stuff, so we'll see what I sort of decide to do with that, whether or not I use this guy. I think all he can get are like force fields and grenades. So he can't really get any decent weapons. I think they all just come with blunderbusses or whatever. But these are cool models. So, and they have some others in this. They did a space called Space Raider Kickstarter. And there's some power armored space orcs that they did that are very similar to. Pardon me while I dump those. That are very similar to these powered armor space orcs. And I might grab one of those to be the war boss for those freebooter space orcs, who are basically going to be renegade goths. Yeah. I could also make them miners. There's a whole lot of different things you can do. Did you see my RT Chaos? I did see your RT Chaos, Alex, and I'm very excited by that. I regret selling my RT Chaos, but I needed the money to buy orcs. Literally, they were sold so that I could buy orcs. So do I regret it? Yes, but not so much, because I got orcs now. So yeah, I'm very excited, and that will certainly factor into Logan's world. But you know what you got to get painted first, right? And you gotta bring me my Rogue Trader stuff, buddy. I know it's just sitting in a box in your car or wherever it is. Summer, I live in Washington, so it doesn't suck like the other side of the Rockies. Okay. I'm trying to remember summer. I lived in Vancouver in 1993, 94. I just remember the winter being rainy, and then it snowed once, and the whole city shut down, and it was like this much snow on the ground. And being from Toronto, I'm used to feet of snow, and it takes a lot to shut this city down. Although recently it seems like it takes a lot less to shut this city down, in terms of weather. So where am I at now? All right, so I'm going to paint. I'm going to keep working on the goblin flesh. Sorry, I keep looking over it. My orcs, I must be itching to paint orcs, and not, it is Orktober. It's not Grottober. Although some of these grots probably think every month is Grottober. So now I'm going to start mixing up my highlight color. So I'm just taking it from here and here. And at this point, I still want it to be more green than flesh, but this looks pretty good. And then I'm just going to lay it. I'm going to put it on the kneecap. I'm going to put it over his... And then we'll do his toes. And I'll worry about his toenails after. Hopefully you can see that okay. Do I need to zoom in more with the camera, or does it look all right? It's hard to... I think I can zoom in. Is that better? Again, over the knee. And the heel. When I do the... I have to reposition the camera for when I do my weekend art show. So it tends to be... I have to readjust the whole hook up here to get it right. And then again, knuckles. You're going to see a lot of me painting orc knuckles over the next 26 days remaining in the month. And possibly into November, depending on how much I get done. If you saw the photo on my Instagram of sort of my my painting goals for this month, I set myself up with a whole lot of space orcs to paint, which is awesome. Because I do enjoy painting orcs, and that was sort of what my blathering topic was going to be was why, what about orcs is it that I enjoy painting so much? What keeps bringing me back to painting orcs and goblins? Well, one, it's because the goal was always to build big armies. I mean, my orc and goblin army was started in the early 90s, and that army, there is a continuous path of that army through 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and even up into 8th edition. And then they ended Warhammer, and so I sort of said, okay, well, you know what? I think whatever I do next is not going to be orcs. And then Age of Sigmar came out, and I was actually going to do Khorne. Split the box with my buddy Nico, and I took the Khorne guys, and he took the Sigmarines, the Stormcast Eternal. And we played a few games, and we both were like, well, this is a weird game. And I mean, Age of Sigmar had a very peculiar launch. And in hindsight, I think they did some things right, and I think they did some things wrong. I actually like the fact that they put out a game without without points. I thought it was a bold choice at the time. And I think it kind of worked out because they just kind of wanted people playing the game. But a lot of people, what they saw was, well, this is the simplest version of Warhammer it could possibly be. And it was very simple. And there was a lot of stuff in those initial war scrolls that didn't really seem like they had bothered to balance it or make a competitive game. And I think what they were trying to do is that they were trying to world build within the mechanics of the game. Essentially, they wanted to use a narrative structure to the rules in order to push the narrative forward, because again, you're going from Warhammer, which had 30 plus years, came out 2015. Yeah, like almost, I don't know, I can't do math in my head right now. Let's say it was 1985 and the game came out in 2015, so yeah, that would be 30 years. But when did Warhammer First Edition come out, right? And more importantly, when did the Warhammer lore start getting codified? Because to me, it didn't really start getting codified until 3rd edition. They make note of a lot of the landscape and geography of Warhammer, of the Warhammer world, but a lot of that is very much, I guess, where it would actually be the most prevalent would have been in fantasy roleplay. Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay really would have been where the development of the lore took place, because especially when dealing with the old world and the Empire and that sort of stuff, a lot of that stuff wasn't presented. If you look at the way it's presented in the 3rd edition fantasy rulebook, this one, if you look at the way that the background and lore is presented in this, it's presented as a lot more open and generic, sort of make your own assumptions sort of thing. And then when you get into armies, when you look at the Empire army in here and the Bretonnian army and then all the other armies, again, things aren't as solidified in the lore as they would become under 4th edition and then on into 5th and 6th edition. And again, I think they only got better at establishing their world, the worlds of Warhammer, right? Both the 40K universe and the old world, the fantasy battle universe. As much as you can call one planet a universe. And then there was always that speculation that the Warhammer world was just a feral world stuck in the Eye of Terror, which I never really subscribed to. But If you read Michael Moorcock, you know that all realities are connected, right? And certainly they would be connected through the realm of chaos. So to say that the Warhammer world, or the old world, is a planet trapped in the Eye of Terror, or somewhere between here and there in the realm of chaos, and that the Slan and the High Elves contained chaos to the northern part of the planet, so that's why you have the chaos wastes. And so then what is the overall significance of the planet, right? And I think they get into some of the cosmology in the end times as well, which I think is good. They don't come right out and say, like, hey, it's just a planet in the 40K universe, but certainly to say the universes are not connected, well, the pantheon of chaos is the connective tissue, right, of 40K and fantasy. So you can see my little grot here. His face is coming along. I'm just sort of going in and adding some highlights and keeping things consistent on the two of them. I can go back in, and I will go back in, and we'll lighten it up even further. If you want to see my paint that I'm using right now, it's basically looking like this. I will be using almost pure this for the topmost bits when I get around to it. But right now we're just knuckling, painting more knuckles. This time today it's goblin knuckles or Gretchen knuckles. Okay. You can always go back and grab some more of the darker if you need to go back and reshade or re-highlight certain areas to help them blend better. Remember, it's not an exact science. It's literally an art. So I know some people will write down like very exacting measurements when trying to remix colors. I just paint. I don't know if you do that. Does anyone do that? Maybe I just imagine that's how other people paint. Maybe everyone just paints the way I do, and I just think everyone has their shit together more than I do, and so they have extensive notes. It's funny when I will go back to paint something, oftentimes, and I'll try and duplicate a paint color, and I'll realize that I have no idea how I painted it. So maybe I should be writing this stuff down, right? Yeah. Sorry, my paper towel's all the way over here. There we go. This little paper towel on the stream there for you. So I'm going to mix up a little bit more here. Going back in to do this guy, and now I'm adding in more and more of the flesh. So you can see it's now less green and closer to the fleshy abundance I want it to be. And then this is really just like about doing tips of the toes. So I believe, and I'm not entirely sure, I'd have to go look, but I believe I'm almost at 200 subscribers now. And of course the first goal is to get to 1,000. And once I get to 1,000, then I can take a look at everything that I've been doing and see what really works and what I sort of want to keep on doing. Obviously, I'm just doing the streaming right now. Finding time to make the produced content that I want to do is challenging. Also because, the only person I have to rely on to do this content is me, right? I just got to be here and be ready and willing and able to paint every day from noon until whenever. It goes on until question mark. You know what that means? The party don't stop. But once I'm able to, And I'm not saying I'm not taking this I'm not taking this seriously now, because I am. But once I'm able to sort of take this more seriously, and we'll see, because who knows what the future may bring. Yeah. Little goblin elbows. Sorry, Gretchen. Grot. Whatever. You know what? Orcs can't remember what to call them. I don't feel like I need to either. They just probably call them the little gits. Yo. Go bring me those little gits. So. Here we go. And then, yeah, I mean, obviously, one thing I'm going to look at doing, once I'm comfortable doing this, is polishing the stream. So, you know, I mean, I'm not pulling in Dr. Disrespect numbers here, so I don't need to have a performance center in my, you know, in a stadium in a Lamborghini. Although those things would be nice. And I find it's funny, when I only became aware of him because of the controversy surrounding the Twitch ban. I had never heard of him before. And I think it was Alex who first sort of turned me on to, oh, this guy got banned. And I'm like, who? What? He's like, oh, just some big Twitch streamer. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And I was going to stream on Twitch. And I may still. Because the people have told me that the engagement for streaming is a lot better on Twitch. I just don't want to have to learn a whole other platform. I know very little about Twitch. I'm not really a Twitch doer. As in, I didn't know who Dr. Disrespect was. But since he's been on YouTube, I've actually been watching him. And when the first time I watched him, I didn't get it. I was like, oh, this guy's really got his head up his own ass. And then I realized, oh, that's the act. That's the character. Like, this is not Dr. Disrespect the person. This is Dr. Disrespect the character, right? And that sort of warmed me up a little bit more to the content he was providing, because I thought it was ridiculous that here's a guy on his stream bragging about the fact that he's 6'8" and has a 37-inch vertical leap or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, but you play video games. And then I realized, oh, that's the joke, right? Is that he's this, you know, physical badass talking about how he can throw like a 60-yard pass or whatever. And none of it matters, because really it's this, right? So there we go. 2 grots. So I'm gonna more fleshy flesh for these guys, more flesh for the flesh gods. And again, it's like getting the tip of the nose, and then it may still look a little flat, and that's mainly because I still have not gone in and reverse highlighted, shaded down the this, which I will do once I do the eyes and things like that. But on goblins, I like the contrast between the flesh and the green to be a little bit more subtle. I want them to look like little green guys, you know, whereas the orcs, I prefer, it makes them look a little bit more weathered and natural. But still, you want to just get that flesh in there, right? Get that skin done, because nothing makes a miniature look more complete than at least their face being painted, because that is where everyone's eyes are naturally first drawn to. So if you can get the face right, the rest of the model can look like crap, and it doesn't matter. It's getting that face right, because that's all anyone's going to remember. Well, that and a giant cool sword or something, right? Yeah. I don't know. Not a lot of people here today, it looks like. Quite a few good ones for Saturday. I'm starting to wonder if the plan of doing it at noon, and it was never a plan that I was committed to sticking with. I just honestly picked noon because it was arbitrary, and I figured if people are working from home because of the new reality we find ourselves in where people are working from home, then it would give them something to tune in on their lunch hour too. It may not be the best time. I may be better suited doing this in the evening. I may be better suited doing this late at night. The Eternal Chronicles after dark, right? Doing something like that. So, and I've talked to people about doing cooperative programming in those times. And we'll see where things go. Right now, I'm sticking with this. What are your thoughts on brown orcs? I have no problem with brown orcs. Brown orcs, red orcs, got no problem with red orcs. I've even seen people paint some orcs in like pure flesh colors, and it was the newer Brian Nelson plastic, like fantasy orcs, and it just makes them look like pigmen, because those faces have those pig noses and stuff. So yeah, I got no problem with however you want to paint your orcs, man. I just like my orcs green, and I have a real contention between painting orcs' tongues like a really bright green or painting them red. Since I've adapted the new flesh that I'm doing that has like a skin in it, a skin tonish in it, so I assume that orcs will have some kind of reddish blood, or maybe their blood looks like Pepto-Bismol, like Klingon blood. So because of that, I'm back to doing my orc tongues red, pink, whatever, right? So yeah, so I'm getting my teeny tiny brush here, and I'm going to get out I'm going to do these grot eyes. So I do my grot eyes the exact same way I do my orc eyes. They're just little beady red beads. Yeah. Let's throw a little red down there on the palette. You can see it there. And then some of this candlelight yellow. And we'll throw that down there. Whoosh. And then I'm going to take my 000 here, and I'm going to paint some Gretchen eyes. So I'm just going to start with the red. And you can see their poor little sad eyes here. And we'll just gently apply some red in there. And then on the other side, and again, I'm not too worried about getting perfect coverage. I am worried about getting red paint onto the skin. And then this little guy, he's got smaller eyes, but we'll get this one in here. And then this one over here. Whoop. I didn't. That was Saturday. Okay. And then I'm just going to take some of this yellow and add a tiny, tiny bit of the red into the yellow, just to kind of orange it a bit. Although I do want it mostly yellow. And then I'm just going to even smaller, just to kind of add, see there, some definition, some highlights to the eyes to make them look a little bit reflective, a little bit like there is some life in there, not too much, because obviously they've probably had their will to live beaten out of them, being Gretchen slaves whose only job is to fire a big gun as often as they possibly can, and it's never possibly fast enough for the orc with the whip. There we go. And now, same brush, I'm going to grab some Reichland Flesh Shade, and let's start reverse highlighting these guys. So I'm going to do his mouth here, so I'm going to give him a nice little line along the top of his mouth. And then I'm going to do under his lip, because I want that bottom lip to kind of stand out. obviously to look like it's a lip. Oh, such a sad guy. And across the bridge of his nose, and then I'm actually going to wash the eyes almost completely. Wash it over here too, and then wash it over here. And when that dries, that'll be fine. And then just getting it down his nose. And sometimes with the grots, I'll go right and give him like a red nose or something. I do a little bit more on the grot green. I'll go in and I'll do the inside of his ears as well. Get that ear over there. And then that's pretty much the face. That's good. Why was Warg the Orc's best set of orc rules? Because they put a lot of work into it, and they weren't afraid to make it insane, because it is actually a really insane set of rules. The Here We Go rules, and so that like Rogue Trader era orcs with the clans, just wacky stuff in there. And the fact that you're rolling on charts and you have charts of bionic weapons and you can custom build your own guns, and no one else could do that at the time. There was no other army list that even came close. And even at the very end of Rogue Trader, when we got sort of the what would become the prototype lists for the Eldar Codex and the prototype lists for the what would become the Space Wolf Codex, which we got those near the end of Rogue Trader. So I want to make sure I get under his nose as well, into those nostrils. And there we go. There's that face reverse highlighted or shaded for people who want to use the improper term. The proper term is reverse highlighting. Just want to make sure I get around his nostrils and stuff. Again, doing this just helps pick out details. And again, you don't have to worry about it because you're looking at it from arm's length, right? And it'll look great. And I will go back in and add a little bit more yellow to those eyes, because when I did wash them, it tends to wash out the yellow a bit. But again, that just helps to make the eyes look a little bit more natural. I will do things like I will use the flesh wash to do their toenails, because again, when that dries, that's going to look like toenails. And whether they got nasty grot toe fungus, I would assume so. I mean, they are fungus. The reason that their skin is green is because there's an algae that grows in the fungus that they are. But yeah, the reason that those were the best orc books was because they were also the only ones that got those for Rogue Trader. They're the only ones that got a book dedicated to them, and they didn't get one book dedicated to them. They got 3 books dedicated to them. One which is just lore, and then 2 which cover all your clans. Now, could they have squeezed that all into one really big book? Well, Here We Go is pretty big. Freeboot is pretty big. Like I think they're about the same size. I think they're about 200 and something pages a piece, or 100-ish. Yeah, 207, and then there's like a whole bunch of pages here that are the vehicle cards. So 208 pages for Here We Go. And then Freebooters is about the same size. And Warg the Orcs. Oh, no, that's the compendium. Warg the Orcs is a little bit smaller, but they put all of the world building and background into one separate book. So the reason that they were the best is because they were the only ones to get. And they're the best set of rules that were published for Rogue Trader because they were the most thought out. They were the most... You can tell it was a real passion project for whoever wrote it, because it's absolutely like just full of ridiculous ideas of orcs and space orc society. And they're so different than what they were establishing for fantasy orcs at the time. And it's interesting that they never sort of crossed that over. You almost have to wonder if like there was an idea at one point when they were working on the 4th edition Warhammer books to incorporate some of the ideas from the space orcs, like the clan structures and things like that. But they kind of left it. Fantasy orcs are even more ambiguous at that time because, like I have things that you wouldn't get in 40k orcs, which is female orcs. So this is an orc villager. So this is an orc townsfolk, a mother with her whelp. Great model, and she's got two. She's got one under her arm here. I think I've got another one where it's throwing the kid. Oh, you know what? I don't have that model. I have the one that's eating a chicken though, or something. What is that? A rat? Some kind of. I want to say it's like some kind of weird bird, but he's like cut the neck of it. It looks like, and he's drinking the blood. I've got a bunch of these old orc villagers. I bought them to make my baggage train because in 4th edition Warhammer Fantasy, you had the option for taking baggage trains, and I want to build an orc baggage train, so I think that's cool. So yeah, so where are we at? We're at 12:55. Like I said, I'm probably gonna shut this down at 1 o'clock, just because I do have a bunch of stuff that I gotta get doing this afternoon. So. So there's you'll see what a lot of people assume is a goblin holding the standard bearer for the Ruglug's armored orcs. It's actually Ruglug's youngest son. So he calls it his youngest whelp. And so that is actually not a goblin. When they redid the Ruglug's armored orcs for Dogs of War in 6th edition, yeah, they were 6th edition. And they redid those models. They turned the Niblet, I think that's what his name is, they turned him into a goblin because there were no orc children at that point. We don't know. There's never any we understand the physiology of orcs in 40k, and there's a great book called Xenology, which is like written by a xenobiologist dissecting the various alien races. And the whole write-up on orcs is absolutely hilarious because he talks about, like, there are organs and stuff in there that he just assumes are just other pieces of mushroom that, like, all these things just shouldn't work together, and he can't understand what these various organs do, but they all are clearly just fungus. And so it's entirely possible that, like, an orc isn't a single organism. He's a bag with a whole bunch of organisms inside the bag, turning him into an orc, right? Because they were genetically created, right? They were grown in a lab by the Brain Boys, and then eventually they took over, and then eventually the Brain Boys lost their intelligence. But my suspicion, and this is my speculation that I was saying to Alex, is that the orcs were created to fight the Tyranids. I believe that the Tau, and this was something that I was told by someone who worked for Games Workshop and would probably have known, and this was around the time that the Tau were coming out. So I think the first Tau came out in 2001 or 2002. So, and I spoke to, this was someone that worked in the design studio, and I won't say their name, but they came over here for a Canadian Grand Tournament to be the special studio guest. And they told me at that time that the idea was that the Tau were a psychically null race. And as a result, they were purpose-built by somebody, and it's entirely possible they were purpose-built by the Eldar, or at least their evolutionary process was shaped and guided in some way. And even in the first Tau army book, you can read where they talk about, like, the Imperium's first encounter with the Tau, and they talk about how they're just these primitive, like, you know, they got sticks and stones, and then they come back a few thousand years later, and they've got space travel, right? But the Tau don't use the warp. They're not. They're almost an entire species of pariahs, and they've never put that in the rules, which I thought was interesting because you would think that they would have, like, a natural resistance, like maybe just give them a 6+ invulnerable save versus all psychic power, all damage from psychic powers or whatever, right? Like that they should have some sort of natural innate, the fact that psychic powers just don't work on them, right? And they're basically blanks. They're psychic blanks. They're a species of psychic blanks, which means that they're perfect for fighting chaos, right? And that was sort of what I was told. And this goes back to Alex being upset that they changed the Silent King's lore so that he's returned to the galaxy to fight chaos. They could have made it interesting. They could have made that he's returned to the galaxy to fight Tyranids. Because, again, why did the Necron tier seek immortality in their robot bodies, right? Well, so that they could live forever. But then they entombed themselves to be awoken when they could retake the galaxy. But did they entomb themselves because they saw the Tyranids were coming and they were like, well, we'll just sleep through that and the Tyranids will ignore us because we're just machines. They have no interest in us. I should really be rereading my lore on that stuff to try and remember, because I've read all those codexes, but who can remember these sorts of things? You got so many priorities and things to remember. I'm yawning now. You know why? I didn't finish my coffee this morning. I had my coffee, I took my kid to school, and my coffee mug is sitting 3/4 full out on the coffee table, because that's where you leave coffee mugs, is on a coffee table. It's out on the coffee table in the living room. And I just realized that now. I did not drink my bottom full of coffee, which means that I have not received my caffeine intake, which means I need to write a letter to the government or something about that, ensuring that my caffeine rations are consistent. One day, right? So there we go. So it's 1 o'clock. I'm going to cut the stream early today. I mean, not early, but I've committed to the hour. Obviously, I don't start till a few minutes in. That's another thing I need to do is at some point I have to go back and re-edit all these videos to cut out my long preamble of I just sort of go live and then get myself ready to go live. And yeah, so bring on the headaches. Yeah, well, I think that's what I'm going to go do right now is I'm going to go and I'm going to grab my coffee cup and I'm going to throw it into the microwave and heat that coffee up and finish it. Because I also put MCT oil in that, so that's sort of where I get some of my morning energy, because I tend to fast till about 3 p.m. these days. That's my thing, and it seems to be helping, seems to be working. Staying ketogenic, losing weight, walking. I walk so much now. I when I'm on the MCT oil, because it's just giving me like energy that my body can't store and has to either burn or I pass it. The MCT oil has been Grot Tuesday. Hey, Tyron. Wow, now everyone shows up. Now it's 1 o'clock. Just I'm about to end the stream, and now there's like people in the chat and stuff. I was painting these guys today. So these are the two little Grot crew, and I was doing their skin today and their eyes. So they are basically almost done. I have to finish off some of the metal, a few of the little details here and there. Sorry, I keep yawning. Jeez, I really need that coffee. And I'm going to do it with their eyes. You know what? I'll do those right now. This will be the last thing you get to see me paint today. And then tomorrow I will just finish the metal, which is just basically like a really simple, quick dry brush to get that metal up. And then they've got like what looks like they're wearing fur underpants, which is probably just to protect their insides from these metal onesies that they wear. Now that I've been yawning so much, my eyes are watering and I can't. This is, yeah, thanks. I've actually lost about 45 to 50 pounds since June. 4 or 5 months of not eating any sugar and keeping my carbs. Last week in the eyes, the last thing you will see is the eyes, Tyler. So yeah, there we go. And that's, again, I'm just adding the yellow to bring the eyes back up so that they got these nice little beaters in there. Oh, look at me. Poor little grots. And then the metal will just be simply gunmetal, very gingerly dry brushed over top of this. And I might make the locks look like they're brass, and I can just do that with some contrast. Nasdrag yellow over a like a silver metallic will actually give you like a little kind of brassy look. If I want something a little bit more weathered, I might go with Skeleton Horde, or even this, the Argos Dunes, which you can see, and that actually over the silver, that'll give you a nice little brass. Or I could just grab a brass and paint them brass, but I probably will just wash them because once I dry brush them, and then you can see this one has got the mankle around his mankle, and this one's got his mankle around his ankle. They are so miserable. Yes, they're the crew for the hop splat gun. They are slave grots, and I should paint this guy's pimple on the top of his head too, because grots have good pimples. So the way I do pimples is pretty simple, and you can do them as simple or as complex as you want. I'll use my linen white, and I'll put a little dab of it here, just a dab, and then I'll top it. So I'll top that zit with this linen white, like so. And then I have, where is it? It's not here. It's over here. Where's it gone? There it is. No, that's Auburn Shadow. That's not what I'm looking for. Here we go. So this is some Reaper red ink. Reaper Master Series Core red ink. And it's quite, you can see it's nice and dark. And when I put it down, if I can get any out, yep. When I put it down over the zit, just like this, and then like that, and then you go, oh no, but you've covered up the linen white. Now it's just completely red. Well, then I just take my finger and I go like that. And boom, instant zit. It's as zitty as it needs to get. And if I really want, once that's dry, I'll go back in with the linen white and just add it back on there. And that is a whitehead ready to go, man. Yeah. So there we go. So glad to see that everyone started chatting in the chat at the end there. My analytics must be completely messed up because clearly there is at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There were 6 different people chatting, and my concurrent viewers has never gone above 1. And there's always one concurrent viewer, and that's me. So my analytics are completely messed up. So I'm going to see if I can figure out once I close the stream down. Then I can go back in and see how many people are actually watching. And I'm going to review sort of the analytics of all my streams. And then I'm also reviewing the... YouTube provides quite a decent amount of information. Like I can see how long people were watching my videos, what parts of the videos they were... like I had peak viewership. And then on the replays as well, it tells me how many views I've gotten. I think I've got a few videos that are up around 100 replays or so. But yeah, so I mean... You know, I've been here most of the time. Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Inquisitor's I'm gonna assume I pronounce it Shavak. Tyler, I see 3 right now, but I came late. Yeah, see, so what I think I probably need to do is maybe on my iPad, I will pull up the stream in my other YouTube account and watch it as my other YouTube account to see, because the YouTube Studio software that you use to stream doesn't actually tell me who's in the chat. It just tells me when people chat. It doesn't say who is watching, and my analytics are completely screwed up because I'm looking at it right now, and it says I have 1 concurrent viewer, and I never went above a concurrent viewer. And it's also possible that it has to do something when I wasn't scheduling the streams and I just started streaming at 12. It was working, but now that I'm setting up the schedule for the stream and then going live at that point, it's yeah, it's very peculiar. But these are all the kinds of things I need to learn. So this is concurrent viewers 3 right now. So it's saying I have 3 viewers. Artificially bump those numbers. Well, I could, you know, I could go to China and pay for some subs to get me to 1,000 subs. But this is right now. This is a side hustle for me. One day it will. One day the hope is that it is not a side hustle, and it is just my hustle. But right now it's a side hustle, and we'll see where it goes from here. see what we can do in 2021. Obviously, I wanted to do this in 2020, but 2020 had other plans for all of us. So here we are. I'm trying to salvage #salvage2020 the last 3 months of the last 3 or 4 months of the year. And yeah. So for right now, I'm Christian from the Eternal Chronicles. Thanks for watching my truncated Monday stream. And we will see you on the flippity flop.